All right, welcome. Thanks to everyone for being here with us at SDHistCon Winter Quarters 2026. I'm Andrew Buckles from the SDHist board, and I'm joined by designer Mark Herman, also a member of the SDHist Board of Advisors. So, Mark, tell us, what are you here to show off today?
Well, let's see if we can. Let me see if I can.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
There we go. Army of the Potomac. We're going to talk about today in some detail, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion about the series and Army of the Potomac. I think you had a picture I sent you of something. So hi everybody. I can't see you all, so but I see there's I guess there's about a dozen people out there. Yesterday I got a photo from Kai Jensen, which I want to share, and Andy is
working on it. Sorry.
yeah, take your time. But the breaking news is that Army of the Potomac is printed. I just got a product shot from the factory via Kai, and so you'll see that it's actually a physical thing. And I'm probably only a day short or 2 days short of having an actual copy in my hands, which I would have shown you, but it's somewhere between China and New York City. So here you go. So I literally got this yesterday afternoon, late afternoon. As you can see, it's all done. I mean, it's there it is. So we're going to discuss this, and we're going to be using a Vassal module, which is, by the way, it's the one we use during playtesting. It'll have to be updated, but I'll work on that. Basically, once you get a picture like this, 6 weeks, there's this thing called the Pacific Ocean between here and China. And so it'll be about 6 weeks until it's in the actual warehouse. And then there's they have to ship it. So given that this is the very end so I would say that I said all along, by March 21st, I would say that many, if not most of you, will have this game in your hands if you pre-ordered it. And I think the pre-orders, they hold that pre-order price until I think the ship hits the shore. So you've got, 6 weeks to, save your allowance or whatever the heck you do at this point as an adult. So what I want to do today is I want to do three things. The first thing I want to do is I would like to have a somewhat detailed conversation about the Rebel Fury Army of the Potomac combat system. I think I've seen a lot of people. First off, the game is, people are enjoying it. It's doing everything I wanted it to do. I see it being played in conventions, which means that you can actually finish this game. And if anybody knows me, though, I'm very. What's very important to me is that I don't just do games. I'm actually a historian doing a historical war game. And so for me, everything I do in a game has to have a connection, data and narrative connection to the actual event. And I don't want the game, and I don't try to balance games per se, because history is not balanced, but I do try to offer ways, if you want to play competitively, there's ways to balance it for a competition point of view, but I don't like to balance history. History is history. And so you get to experience it. And when I did Gettysburg and Waterloo for Roger McGowan and C3I magazine, I could have done. By the way, there's 19 pieces in the Gettysburg game. It was meant to be a introductory game. That's what Roger asked for, and I was amused by some saying, like, well, it's not very detailed. Well, it's an introductory game, and if you're already like a GBACW or GCACW player, it's not for you. It's meant to be for somebody who's, never really had a war game before and all that. But what I did do is I could have done a Gettysburg game a la the old blue and gray quad. I could have done that game in 10 minutes. I mean, literally, it's, you move all your pieces, I move all my pieces. We get next to each other in zones of control. We roll dice, somebody wins. You get victory points for taking Cemetery Hill, blah, 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 somebody wins. And for me, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. We already have that. We have 30 games, Gettysburg games like that. So I really sat down and had a deep think, and I said, what is the real nature of American Civil War combat? And by the way, you should know that when I became interested in the American Civil War when I was 6 years old, because that was the centennial. And by the way, anybody who says I was in the Civil War, no, it's not true. But I was, but I was around at the centennial, and there were actually a few people who were alive who had been in the Civil War when I was a kid. And I mean, I didn't know any of them, but I'm just at the edge of that period of time when I was born. And I started reading Civil War books back then, and I was fascinated by it. And now I've been reading it since I was 6. I'm 71, so it's been a while. And this year I've been a game designer for 50 years this year. So I've been looking at this topic for a long time. And here's one of the things that I saw, particularly in combat, is and I just literally read an account of the Wilderness, which we're going to cover in a great deal of detail in a few minutes. But what happens is the guys literally, they attack. And assuming, by reason I'm looking at my shoulder, my wife finally just got home, and I hear her voice, but she's here, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. But so when they launch an attack, literally, and I've been compiling data on this thing for literally decades. 2 out of 3 assaults in the Civil War failed. That's the simple. You can be in a particular battle, but basically, guys. Thank you, Andy. Guys go up the hill, guys come back down the hill. And I wanted you, so going back to SPI, let me start here. Going back to SPI, a combat results table basically was you moved all your pieces, you got next to somebody, did a bunch of force calculations of some kind, differential or usually odds ratio. You had a die roll, and in those days it was a 6-sided die because they were cheaper. So you had a 6-sided die, you would add or subtract numbers from that die roll, you'd cross-index that modified die roll with the column, boom, there's a result, the whole battle's resolved. The problem with that is it's a very game-structured way of handling an outcome, but it has nothing to do with the narrative of what's being seen underneath that one CRT result. In other words, that's not how combat worked in the actual Civil War. From a game perspective, it worked great. We did it, I know, there's like literally 400 games on the American Civil War, probably more, by the way, but let's just call it 400 games, 500 games, I don't know, but a lot. Hello, Daniel. Good to see you. So the point is I didn't want that. We've done that before. We've been doing it. I was doing it for 50 years, so I get that. But what I wanted to do was saying, when I read the accounts, and I'm very big about historical narrative, I wanted you to feel like most attacks are uncoordinated. I want you to feel like I want to take that position, and I actually have to hit it 2 or 3 times. Before, you can always hit it once, but the probability is 1 out of 3 you're going to fail. You're going to succeed 1 out of 3 times. You're going to fail 2 out of 3 times, and that's very, it's a 1-to-1 odds attack. Think about any game you've ever played at 1-to-1 odds. If you're making all 1-to-1 odds or 1-to-2 odds attacks, how does that usually work out for you? You got as many guys as the other guy. He's got all the defensive terrain. You're going to fail in any other war game you've ever played. But here, you have to understand that the way that you achieve success in this game is by perseverance, just like they did. And so I want you to understand the rule of 3 when you play Rebel Fury or Army of the Potomac. And so let's just take a sim. And by the way, if you didn't know, I'm a little bit of a math guy. So if you don't like math, just turn your ears off or just get the basics of what I'm trying to say. So I don't even know if I have a coin here, but if you took a coin and flipped it, right? And it's got 2 sides. Look, in fact, the Super Bowl is going to be on Sunday. So you're going to see at the beginning of the Super Bowl, the ref's going to come out. And he's going to go, this side is the heads and this side is the tails, because they're not using, they're using some special coin. And the guy who says, call it, the one guy says, heads. He flips it in the air. It hits the turf. They look down and goes, it's heads. You get your choice. Or it's tails. They get their choice. And that's you're going to see that on Sunday. So if you take a coin and you flip it, the probability it's going to be heads or tails is 50-50, right? We all can figure that out. And so if you play a simple game with yourself and say, hey, if you're going to flip, I want you to flip the coin 3 times. The question is, and remember, probability math, how you ask the question is very important. So the question I'm asking is, what is the probability that one of those 3 tries is going to be a heads? You could get 2 heads, you could get 3 heads, but I'm only asking, what is the probability that one of them will be heads? And if you look at the top line of this chart, basically it's 87.5%. And I'm not going to go there is an article in the playbook of Army of Potomac. It was my C3I article in issue number 38. So the actual equation's there, but just trust me, it's 87.5% because it's 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5. It's 1 minus those three numbers is that answer. So there's only a 12.5% chance of failure. Therefore, it's an 87.5% chance of success. Okay, simple concept. So when you play Rebel Fury, I want you to think about not that what is my chances of winning this attack, but if you want to take that position and you're only launching one attack on that position, you're just, you're hoping for the best. That's really what it is. But if you hit it 3 times, the overall statistic says if you do it correctly, you will take one of the 3 tries is likely to take it. It doesn't mean you won't take it. You can have total failure. You can succeed on the first one. But the point is, you got to think about if you want that position, you got to really hit it at least 2 times, maybe 3. These are supported attacks, not just like one guy going up a hill. And consequently, if you do it any other way, given the way I designed it, and I've never designed a game this way before, by the way, where you have to hit a thing multiple times like that, you're going to be upset that you didn't succeed because you're basically fighting, 3 1 to 2 attacks, and it doesn't always work out. So, and what you're looking at the top of this chart, there's a table here, and this is, by the way, is already in my article. If you got C3I 38, you already have this in the article, my Cleo's Corner. If you get Army of the Potomac, it's already in the playbook. So that article from C3I is fully reprised in the playbook. So it's and this is there it is. This is the playbook, and you saw it in the photo. And again, it's in there. And if you don't have, if you only have Rebel Fury, you never intend to buy Army of the Potomac, and you're not going to get the C3I. This is the reason I have this here is I'm writing an article for Inside GMT, so you'll be able to get it that way. So everybody gets it if you want it. And what this table was done by Dr. David Casper, who's an eminent physicist, teaches out of California, works in CERN, very smart guy, nice man, a good friend of mine. And what this shows you is the probability of any attack rating from 1 to 10 versus any defense rating, and the number is the probability of success, which is so we're going to use this table, but the point is and green is good. That means the attacker has an advantage, or it's 50% or better if it's green. If it's red, it's less than 50%, and the kind of lighter colors are close to 50%. So you can get a general sense of how the CRT lays out. And in general, when you're attacking, you pretty much never want to be off the 7 column if you're attacking. 6 is okay, but look at the big break there is between 6 and 7. And 7 and 8, not much of a difference. So you want to be 7 or better when you're attacking to have a decent chance at some level of success. If you're attacking at less than 7, your odds are more against you, and that's just how that is. So, as I said, I'm a historian. So the picture to the picture now. Let's talk about the picture. And again, I apologize. My graphic ability is just my 8-year-old granddaughter already has graphic skills about 10,000 times better than mine. And she's making videos and, putting all these things and special effects and all this stuff. I have no clue what she's doing, but she's 8 and she already does that. The 3-year-old can already operate an iPad fully effectively. So you can see I'm just too old to be doing this well. That's all I'm trying to say. But in this picture, this is a small snapshot of the Wilderness Spotsylvania map from Rebel Fury. Where you see Ulysses S. Grant in the middle of the shot is underneath him is a place called the Lacey House, which is marked on the map, but it's underneath the counters, obviously. And Grant actually, at this moment in time, so this is May 5th at 10:30 in the morning, and Grant orders an attack. And I'm going to talk about that, a little bit of the history of that, because it's fun to hear that stuff. And Grant is literally about a couple hundred yards east of the house. So he's in that hex. That's where he actually is. Now, when you play Rebel Fury, as you know, it's really the commander intent, but I just put him where he actually was because he's ordered this attack. Now, in front of him, and again, this is all exactly where they were at 10:30 in the morning on May 5th, you've got Johnson's division across the pike, And behind him, oh, there we go. Behind him, you have Rhodes' division in a reserve position. And in front, you have, on the left, you have Wadsworth's division, and you have Griffin's division. Now, what's interesting historically, because again, I'm fascinated by this battle, and I've studied, because of Army of the Potomac, I've studied in incredible detail. Grant orders the attack at 10:30, but the attack does not happen until 1 o'clock, after he's basically been screaming at Meade for a couple of hours, because Griffin doesn't want to do it. Every time Warren says you have to attack now, Griffin goes, "There's too many Rebs in front of me. I'm not ready for an attack. My right flank is hanging in the air," which it was. Wadsworth's going, "I'm not really sure what's going on my left flank," and they're all just and the Army of the Potomac. We can go into that. That's a longer discussion, but these guys are balking at doing what they're being told to do. So Griffin refuses 3 direct orders from Meade. Well, actually Warren, because it's Meade telling Warren, who's the 5th Corps commander, to do it. Griffin won't. Griffin just won't do it. But finally, at 1 o'clock, Grant issues a direct order in their presence. He says, "You are to attack with no concern for your flanks. Just do it." So anyway, but this is the 10:30 in the morning, but the positions are about the same at 1, except that Rhodes is a little bit better position. But I just felt this is a good place to look, because remember, it's what if history. So let's look at this one in a little bit more detail now. So as I say, when possible, think about 3 attacks. So the combat narrative is that this is where they were at 10:30, but they actually don't attack until. So this is turn 1 of the scenario. They don't attack to turn 2. Can look at that as the Rebs passed and you rolled a 0 die roll for extra attacks. I mean, it can happen. So you might get a chance, and then you have other. And by the way, there's more things going on down at Parker's store and all around the battlefield. So you might have had other places you needed to attack more importantly, whatever. But this attack, we're going to look at this attack, and there's going to be 5 attacks. But the plan is the first 3 we're going to talk about. So you've got Wadsworth's division, which is the 1 arrow and the 2 arrow, is going to attack Johnson B. We'll talk about Johnson A in a second. And then the 3rd attack is also planned. And so when you're committing to taking a position, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to spend 3 artillery ammunition to take this position if I have to. I'm not going to just. Now, you can always stop the attack if you want, and that's really kind of, you start to feel like McClellan. It's like, oh, I'm losing a lot of guys. And let's face it, as a criticism to all of us, none of us like losing pieces. We don't mind taking step losses because the piece is still there. In this game, when a guy gets blown, he basically goes back and reforms somewhere nearby, but he's not available. And we don't like that. But mea culpa. And so what we have first is assault number 1 is a 7v9. Why is it? Let me go through those numbers real quickly. And again, the combat system is dirt simple. I heard some people complain there's too many modifiers. There's really 4. And I know a lot of games that you guys like have a hell of a lot more than 4 modifiers. So please. But anyway, so the first modifier is you always start with a 1. That doesn't count as a modifier. Every unit's basically a 1. Then the question is, does it have a battle star, which would make it a 2? But none of these guys, none of the Union units have a star except for that 1 Johnson unit. We'll talk about that in a moment. So basically, I get 1 for that. I have a tack support. So there's a guy, another part of my division is next to me. He's adjacent to me and the defender. He's part of the attack. So I get 2 more for that. So now I'm a 1, I'm a 3. Plus, there's an integrity rule. I'm 4. And I'm throwing in artillery. So I'm a 7th, right? 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 is 7. The defender in this case is using defensive artillery support, and he's in the woods. And he's next to a guy from his division. So, he's basically a 1 plus 3 is a 4, plus 4 is an 8, plus 1 for the integrity is 9. So it's a 7v9 attack. That's it. It's that complicated. And if we look on our table, 7v9 is a 29% chance. It's a little small on my screen, but it's a 29% probability of success. No, I'm making my screen much bigger now, but I can't see you when I do that, Andy. Anyway, so it's 29%. So basically, the odds here are this 1 attack. The chances of success is going to be 29%, which means basically, if we did this battle 10 times, 7 of them I'm going to fail, 3 I'm going to succeed. And obviously, that's not a good odds attack. Now, I actually rolled this out, so these results are actually first pass through that I did when I was writing the article. I even said in the article, hand on the Bible, this is how it came out, although I'll run a couple more just to show different options. But Wadsworth's division is blown. And so he goes off the map, right? That's the first attack has failed, but we're committed to 3. The second assault is also a 7v9 because it's the same exact situation. And because Griffin and Wadsworth were in the same corps, you still get the 1 core division in integrity. Again, 8 times fail, 7 times fail, 3 times succeed. Boom. We get a retreat result this time. And so Wadsworth falls back. Now we get to the third one. Now the problem now we start running into is Griffin's other unit is not adjacent to Johnson. So he can't give him he can give him integrity, but he can't give him attack support. But I do have Grant in battle mode. So now we're going to risk Grant. Grant's now going, okay, this has got to work. So Grant, literally think about that narrative. So it's Grant plus artillery and integrity, get you back to 7. And it's a 9 still on the defender, but this time we got Johnson was blown. So again, 3 tries. We've lost 2 units to being, 1 guy has fallen back, 1 guy is off the map for a day, but we finally knocked Johnson out. However, Griffin can't advance because he's in the zone of control of Johnson B. Now, you'll note that Johnson B has a battle star and Johnson A has a battle star. Johnson B does not have a battle star. So why is that? Well, in Johnson A, and I said, I know where every single brigade and regiment is. Johnson A has a brigade under a guy named General Walker. And General Walker his brigade used to be called the Stonewall Brigade. So this is the Stonewall Brigade is in that piece. And so they are a little bit, they're an elite unit. And so they get a battle star. But now we're going to have, at this point, I had committed to 3 attacks. I knocked Johnson out. But, these guys are in clear terrain. Yeah, what the heck? I kept going. And now what's interesting, by the way, is what I'm going to describe now of how Griffin's division handles these attacks is actually exactly how the narrative took place at 1 p.m. So what I'm going to describe now, it happened a few hours later, but it happened exactly the way it happens here, which is interesting. So Assault 4 is Grant plus attack support, because now Griffin B is adjacent to Johnson A and to the attacker, and integrity. Again, Johnson B is now he's a 9. The reason he's a 9 and not a 10 is because Johnson B is not there anymore. So he's losing the integrity for Johnson B, but he's got the Stonewall Brigade. So that's still at a 9. And there was a blown result. It just happened. And so Johnson A is gone. And that's exactly what happened historically. And so now Griffin A is no longer in a zone of control. And the rule is that if a 2 or 3 star general is in battle mode, and that person is so if you're just within range of them when you get a pursuit, you can pursue 2 hexes. And so Griffin, which is exactly what happened, is Griffin's brigade. It was Bartlett's brigade. There was Ayers and Bartlett's brigades were the lead attack. Bartlett's brigade succeeds, and so they roll forward and they go to the bottom of that arrow number 5, which is where the next attack is going to take place. However, to get that result, the reason we got a blown result, because we got there is dice. Like everybody goes, oh, it's random die roll. Look, there is dice. If you don't like, it's interesting is in chess long ago, the first opening ever written was the Ruy Lopez. And Ruy Lopez was a high-level Roman Catholic. Then he was a bishop. He later became a cardinal. And he was a chess fanatic. And the church was against all games. But Ruy Lopez argued to the church that there are no dice in this game. Therefore, there's no hidden information. It's not the devil's game. It's God's game. And they bought that argument. But we're not playing God's game. We're playing the devil's game. We're rolling dice. So sometimes you're going to roll a 0. Sometimes you're going to roll a 9. And the reason that Johnson A the Johnson unit got blown on the Assault 4 is I happened to roll a 9 for the Union, and I rolled a 0 for the Confederates. And 0 is always bad. And if you know my games, there's no free lunch ever, because it's like that in history. So a 9-0 result, and if it had gone the other way, it would have been a disaster for Griffin. But a 9-0 result is going to be the extreme ends of any distribution. And so he was blown. Griffin advanced, and because of the 9, Grant has to check for a casualty. Grant is got too close to the action, and he didn't get hit. The way it works is you have to roll a 9, but you add battle stars, so a more aggressive leader has a higher probability of getting basically out of the battle. And the effect of that is that you can no longer go in battle mode for the rest of the battle, but that didn't happen. So Grant is still okay. You saw some bullets whiz by, maybe a shell took the head of one of his guys near him, but he didn't get hit. And now Grant, so now we've got Griffin A is now adjacent to Rhodes, and in the historical situation when this happened, Rhodes repulsed this advance. So again, this Griffin attacks 4 and 5 were exactly the way it happened at 1 o'clock. And so this one was Griffin retreated. And so at the end of all of this battling, right, 5 attacks, 5 die rolls. They went also, and again, we got die rolls all over the place because we rolled 5 dice twice, right? There was a Confederate 5, and you got all these different interactions. And what ended up interestingly happening was the assault was a counterattack result, and that's how Rhodes actually threw him back. So at the end of the battle, everything is, if you take away Wadsworth's 2 units and you take away Johnson's 2 units, Griffin is exactly where he started the battle. Rhodes is in his reserve defensive position, and everything else, Grant and all those other guys in reserve are exactly where they are. So very typical of a Civil War battle. Lots of combat, and at the end of the day, people were killed, but everybody's standing where they started. And that is, and again, I would ask you to read 100 books about tactical combat. And if you don't see this over and over and over and over again, then I'm not sure which books you're looking at. So anyway, so I go back to the equation just for a moment. I apologize, but the probability that the first 2-3 attacks succeeded was probability of failure is 1 minus 0.29 times blah, blah, blah. So you had a 0.35 chance of failure, and success is 1 minus failure. So this overall 3 attack had a 65% chance of success. And that's not bad odds, right? It's 2 out of 3, which was the equation that went into this thing in the first place. So again, if you want to understand this combat system, you need to consider it from this perspective. So Andrew, we can take this down, and if there's any questions, I'd like to, let's ask them if they have any questions. You can leave this up while they ask for questions or whatever you want to do, and then we'll carry on. Did that carry through okay?
Absolutely. No, that was great, Mark. I'm not seeing any questions right now, but if people do have them, leave them in the YouTube comments, and we'll pull them up and get to them as they come up. Do you want me to pull up that Fair Oaks next, or?
So what I want you to do is first let's bring up the Vassal module.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's show them the Fair Oaks scenario in Vassal. But I would first want them to see the whole map. It's all stitched together, and I'll talk about the map a little bit. So just while Andrew's pushing buttons and doing all this stuff that I can't do, God bless him for all his technical skills, we are going to see. So Army of the Potomac has 7 maps, and they're lettered A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we go all saying the alphabet when we do this. And Joel Topin took the 5. There we go. So let me just sort of walk you through this ginormous map here. Go to the. Can you move the bar to the far left there so they can see the far left side of this? There you go, and then go up a little. Yeah, perfect. So you see, there's a map that's canted, off axis there. That is the Rebel Fury Wilderness Spotsylvania map. That if you have Rebel Fury, you already have that map. And the scenario it's hard to, if you look on the upper quarter quadrant of the Rebel Fury map, go a little bit more to the left, and you see that open area, like with a lot of roads coming in over, on the near the river, near the river. Go. Oh, you're very close. Yeah, put the cursor where you just had it. Now go straight down. Stop right. You see that opening area right there, that crossroads? Okay. Everything I just showed you in that example is right there. That's where Wilderness Tavern is, and that's where a lot of the initial battle took place, because it's the wilderness and it's open ground there. So, it's like the old joke, you lose your car keys at night in a parking lot and you go looking for them under the street light. The answer is, why are you looking there? The answer is, it's the only place I could see. So the only place they could really have a lot of troops that could get at each other easily was there, and that's where the battle kind of started over in that location. Anyway, that's the Rebel Fury battlefield. And north is basically, let's call it 10 o'clock. So if you go off at 10 o'clock, that's north. And there's compass roads on all the maps, so you don't have to remember that. Okay, that's the Rebel Fury map. And if you don't have Rebel Fury and you get Army of the Potomac, you don't need Rebel Fury. Rebel Fury's got a bonus scenario, but Joel put it all together. So let's now look at the map that's sort of like straight across, that's underneath the Rebel Fury map. That's map A. And basically, the Rebel Fury map onto map A is the wilderness Spotsylvania situation. And then we're going to cover all this, but I just wanted you to just kind of get so now go to the right there, Andrew. Thank you. Doing a great job here, Andrew. And keep going to the right. More. You can stop there. Now go down to Richmond. You'll see Richmond. Yeah. So you can leave it right there. So now this is the area at the end of Grant's 1864 campaign, but more importantly, it's also McClellan's 1862 campaign. And the reason we call it Army of the Potomac is you have basically you have Fair Oaks, Seven Pines, and you have the 7 Days battle, which we're going to show to you. And you can see there's Richmond. And by the way, that is a street level map. That is not some kind of you have like an urban pattern or whatever. That is in fact the street map of Richmond in 1862. So it's kind of cool. And you see the forts around it, and you see the Chickahominy River there, and so now if you could bring us up close into the Fair Oaks thing a little bit more. Here we go. Where center it on like that. See that? By the way, you see that purple hex that's outlined there? You should know these are the original playtest maps. And so that hexagon does not exist in the final printed thing. It was a registration mark because there's three maps that come together on that hexagon. And so Charlie Kibler put that there just so we could register things. But I found it useful to describe things. So it gives me a point. So if you go in a 2 o'clock towards that Union unit, right up the road from the purple hex, that one right there, yep, that's Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks is a train station. It's the Fair Oaks train station, and the Union has a unit guarding it. And if you go and just like 2 hexes, right nearby is Seven Pines. So this is the center of the Union position, and that's all occurring on. Hang on, where's that? I've got a ton of paper laying around all over the place here. And anyway, this is 1862, and this is early May. And so this is the first scenario you'll see in the playbook. And what's nice about it is it's a 2-turn scenario, and it plays. So if you haven't, it's a good place to start. It'll take you 2 turns, not a lot of pieces, a couple of special rules, and there you go. So Andrew, could you bring up those 4 slides that I sent you just not a little while ago? I'm gonna look at this a little bit of detail and just show you how maneuver.
Yeah.
Think about maneuver. Yeah, take your time. But anyway, we're going to come back to this. But I wanted to show you some slides with some close-ups and some arrows because it's hard to describe for me on SteamYard, where Andrew's running the show here. It's hard for me to describe things to you.
Sorry, Mark, I'm not actually seeing slides. I see the Vassal stuff.
No. I sent you a PDF. Remember, you said I got it. It was that PDF I sent you like about 40 minutes.
1 second.
Yeah, take your time. I'll keep talking. So anyway, So you get two scenarios. You get the Fair Oaks scenario, then you get this really cool 7 days battle scenario. And the 7 days battle. Well, first of all, I'm not even aware of any games that even cover Fair Oaks. I'm sure there was one over the last 50 years. I might have missed it, but this is not a battle that gets looked at hardly at all. And what's interesting about this battle is Joe Johnson is the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia in this battle, and he will on this day get wounded. And the next day, the guy who gets the Army of Northern Virginia is a guy named Robert E. Lee. So this is the battle that transitions you from Joseph Johnson, J.J. Johnson there, to Robert E. Lee. And anyway, so and what's happening is they realize in this time 2/3 of the Union Army is north of the Chickahominy River and 1/3 is south of the Chickahominy River. And so the Confederates see an opportunity to attack. And so this is showing you some initial moves of what's good rebel moves for the beginning of this game. You can see, off to the left there, you've got a few divisions, and having them swing around behind Fair Oaks that way. You can see where McClellan and Johnson are on the map, and they're both in battle mode. And this battle takes place literally. You're not maneuvering all over the map. This is going to be very focused on the two turns around Fair Oaks and Seven Pines. And so you can see Longstreet having an opportunity to come up on the right side, that arrow up there. And you've got whatever his name is, it's Huger, I think, can come up on the left. And the idea is to try to flank and knock out those two units and take Fair Oaks and Seven Pines. Give me the next chart there, Andrew. Beautiful. Now, this is just showing you I put this picture in here mostly because a lot of people what people have complained, and they say to me, I love the game or I hate the game, but either way, they say it's really, I hate to have to keep counting command ranges. Now, it's been you guys are all very smart. So two things I didn't do is I don't tell you how to suck eggs, but in case it escaped you, I mean, most people have wooden cubes. These are some X's I got sent by somebody a million years ago. And so you see where Joe Johnson is, and you see those X's around him. And I put a lot more on than I would need to, but just for the photo, you see it's creating a large hexagon. So basically his range is in battle mode is at 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got a 6 hex battle range. And so it's describing the area in which he can command soldiers in this scenario, and he doesn't move in this scenario. So you're not going to be able to send the rebels all the way down the river or across the river. They can only operate within that hexagon. And the red ones are showing you the limits of where McClellan's command range is. So basically the whole battle, I use that as a way to force you to, the whole battle is going to take place in that gray, that zone between the gray X's and the red X's. That's where the battle is going to take place. And it's only 2 turns long. So it's a very concentrated battle, but that's what it plays great solitaire. And by the way, if there's a guy named Hex to Hex and Cam Sawyer, they played this entire scenario in a live stream. You can get it on their channels. Hex to Hex is the guy's channel. His name is Jeff Fry. He's a very nice guy. And you got Alan Sawyer and Cam Sawyer. They both did it. They both streamed it. You can see them play out this entire battle, and they had a great time. So again, on a live stream where we play the entire battle, it would take you probably 30 minutes with an opponent or 20 minutes alone to play this scenario. But it gives you the kind of the flavor of the system. If you haven't played it in a while, it'll bring you right back. Can I have the next one there, Andrew? Yeah. So and then what this is showing you is that the only units that can come in on the Union side during the scenario are these 3. That's Bull Sumner's corps, second corps on the other side of the river. The 3rd corps is the one that's being attacked, at Fair Oaks. And so on the second turn of the scenario, those 3 units can come into the battle. That's all that's showing you. Okay, so that gives you a quick look at Fair Oaks. Now, if Andrew, if you could go back to the Vassal module, we're done with slides now, and if we could look at the 7 days battle setup. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing good. 7 days. And as you can see, all this comes in the Vassal module, but we have to update it. There's a few, some units are not exactly where they're supposed to be, but it's, it's free stuff. What do I tell you? Do you see the 7 days?
Sorry, working on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't be frustrated. I'm sorry. I'm asking you to do. You're doing all the hard work. I'm just talking. Here, look at my cool.
It looks like, yeah, it's not actually letting me load it from within this, so I'll go out and come back in and do that again.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, so one of the interesting things I ran into when I was doing the game is 7 days battle. So I'll talk about the history of that while Andrew's working on the, getting up the imagery. So it's the end of May of 1862, and now Lee is the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia because Johnson was wounded, not killed, in the Battle of Fair Oaks just about a few weeks earlier. And Lee realized, and what has happened since Fair Oaks is now 2/3 of the Union Army is south of the Chickahominy River, and 1/3 of the Army, the Fifth Corps, is north of the Chickahominy River. And Lee gambles. Yeah, you're gonna have to go to the far right. Every time you do this thing, you're gonna see the whole, that gigantic map. So you're at the far right end of this thing. You'll see piece. Keep going. That's gonna. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Down. There we go. So again, using the famous purple hex, which you will never see again except in this one vassal version. That is sort of the 1/3. A small part of the Confederate Army is there between the Union Army and Richmond. So, and you can see, what are they? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 5 miles from that front line. The Union front line to the city of Richmond is 5 miles. So they're damn close. And there's more of them than there are the Confederates. On the left side, you see Robert E. Lee is that headquarters. That's over. That's right. He's right there. There's Robert E. Lee. And by the way, Jeff Davis makes his appearance because remember, Richmond is only, he rode out. He was in all these battles. The president of the Confederacy was sitting on his horse watching the battle because, he's the commander in chief. Their constitution is almost identical to the U.S. Constitution, except that slavery was obviously allowed and states' rights was a little bit more pumped up, but it's almost the same words. So anyway, Jeff Davis is in the game, and but he and Lee are over there, and what's happening is the 2 units that are right nearby there, just north of him, that's A.P. Hill's division, and those 4 units down there is Longstreet is going to cross the river, but the problem they're having is right in front of them, that bridge is not quite in good shape, so they're going to get over slowly. But the whole point of this attack is, and he's not on the map yet, north of the Union positions right there, that's the 5th Corps at Beaver Dam, a guy named Stonewall Jackson is supposed to come. They're waiting for Stonewall Jackson to hit those units on the flank before A.P. Hill attacks. And Jackson's not going to show. So the scenario begins with, a limited set of circumstances, but A.P. Hill is going to assault those Union positions. Longstreet's not going to really get across the river, and the Rebs are going to fail. They're not going to penetrate the position, and it's going to look and at this point, Phil Kearny in particular go to McClellan and said, "We've got them. We just have to. If we can take Richmond. All we have to do is attack right now, and we can take Richmond." And McClellan. This is McClellan being McClellan. He decides that he knew about Jackson showing up. They have enough intelligence. They know that Jackson's marching from the valley here. So this is not a surprise to him. In fact, he's got a cavalry detachment screening them. So he knows basically where Jackson is. And the Union supply line. And so if you see that, that line of wagons down the right side there going from the top of the map down, if you can just frame into that. I just want to talk about that a little bit. Just make it bigger. Yeah, it's starting there. So that's good enough. So that's the beginning. So the Union supply line right now runs from that wagon all through those wagons down towards a place called Malvern Hill. And McClellan is changing his base of operation. That's what he's decided to do. And McClellan's HQ stays in that location for the whole scenario because this is a solitaire scenario. You don't need in fact, you don't want an opponent because all McClellan's going to do is using the Rebel Fury rules. When you're at a command, you have to get into command when you move. And are there scenarios like chance? I didn't see that question. What was the question there? I saw something about chances.
Sorry, this was a comment from John Wolf earlier about if there were scenarios designed for solitaire play, and you're talking.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that right now. So yeah, but I just saw it pop up and it went away so fast. So what happens is in Rebel Fury, if you move a unit and you're out of command, you have to move closer to being in command. And the answer is, well, first off, Wolf Dog, yes. So I'm describing that right now. So basically, you are in this scenario Robert E. Lee, and you're attacking the Union, and the Union has to every time the Union has to move, there are solitaire guidelines on how to move the Union forces, but they have to fall back on McClellan. And every turn, that wagon train, one of the counters comes off. So the way the Confederates win the game is they have to interrupt the transfer, the base transfer. You have to try to penetrate that line of wagons. But remember, every turn, one of those wagons is going to come off the map. And when the last wagon's off, if you haven't succeeded in stopping the wagon train, you're lost, basically. And the Union Army is between you, and as the Union Army falls back, all the famous battles, see that big swamp in here? That's White Swamp. There are battles, Savage Station, White Swamp, on and on and on. All the 7 days battles take place north and heading towards, and the last one, right where McClellan says Malvern Hill, that's the last battle of the 7 days battles. And so the Union Army is trying to get the Fifth Corps get them south of the Chickahominy, and then they all fall back on Malvern Hill. And you, as the player, you're trying to get through and and you get points for knocking out Union units, but you win a big victory if you can knock out the base transfer. And so it is totally solitaire, and that's the historical scenario, by the way. That's not a now, if you want to play it, now I also give you a 2-player version of this, because the historical one really is best played solitaire, because the amount of special rules you have to write in any other game I've ever seen to make the Union not attack Richmond is just ridiculous. So it's a solitaire scenario for the historical scenario, but for the alternate history scenario, it's a straight up 2-player game. And typically what happens in the 2-player game is Richmond falls. So you kind of get a sense that, yeah, maybe if Grant was in charge of the army here, the war may have ended much earlier. But he had the opportunity to take Richmond when Lee took his best forces off to the left. He left open the straight route to Richmond. Phil Kearny yelled at him, had a big fight, but he wouldn't do it. And so you get to see. But if you want to play that out, it's a great 2-player. It's actually probably a good solitaire anyway, because the Union has too many soldiers to lose it, really. But that is 7 days. So that is those are the 2 1862 scenarios. Does anybody have any questions? I hope I answered the solitaire question. Are you planning a digital? It's already in the yes. The guy's name is Bob Tipton. He's the one who did the Rebel Fury Steam version. He already had. In fact, I wrote. We've been dialoguing via email. Just even within the last week. He's got all the materials, the final materials, and he's working on it.
You're watching.
Oh, here he is. Here's my good man, Bob. So Bob is not only here, but he is working on it now. And so the answer is, yeah. This is the guy though doing all the work. I've already done my work. Now it's up to Bob to do his work. But I'm very excited for having. But this is a much bigger game than Rebel Fury, so he's got a lot more work. I think he told me that the North Anna scenario might be getting close. Is that true, Bob? You could say yes or no. I think that's what you wrote me in the email, right? Anyway, I'll keep talking if Bob pops in. So, great stuff. How many people do we have on now, by the way, Andrew?
We have 34 watching right now. And and Bob says yes to your question.
Okay. Well, so I just proved that thanks for answering. Did anything in design this volume stick out as being more difficult? Yeah, I mean, this has got Rebel Fury is 6 separate battles. This one has and I'm going to now, by the end of this thing, we're going to discuss. I have to accelerate. Oh, wow. You're living in 11, right, Andrew?
Yes, but I think we can keep this going without me. Maybe as long as
I can't move the screens around though.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I think Volko's thing is next, but I think they're maybe more independent. But I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. Why don't you? I apologize, guys. I had thought originally we had 2 hours, so I was sort of setting up. Could we go to the playthrough of the extended campaign? Sorry, I can discuss the campaign really quickly.
I'll bring that up. Yeah.
It'll answer this question. But the campaign rules, you don't have to play with the campaign rules. You could basically, right out of the box, you could take this game, you could play all of these scenarios, all the one map scenarios or one scenario, battle scenarios. If you know how to play Rebel Fury, you know how to play all the battle scenarios. There are no core rule changes of any note. Some editing, some clarifications, but nothing changed in the system, period. Now, as far as the campaign goes, the big thing here is, you get a kind of a mini campaign with the 7 days solo scenario, but the main thing is you get in the Army of the Potomac box from May 13th, which is the day after the end of Rebel Fury Spotsylvania scenario, to June 5th. So you can literally play from the end of the Battle of Spotsylvania all the way through to the end of this campaign and Cold Harbor. And there is a great Cold Harbor scenario, by the way, but due to lack of time, we're going to have to jump into, I just want to show you this quick 2 turns. We're going to click through a V-save of the game, and I can talk to the campaign rules there. And yes, I guess you got the V-save, you got the V-log up.
I sure do, yeah.
Yeah, you might want to expand the area around the far left map. You can go, we're not going to leave that area where all the Union units is about where we're going to be most of the time here. Yeah, right there, perfect. Okay, and if you can pop it up a couple of levels of detail, expand, boom, boom, perfect. Okay, so what's going to happen here? Why don't you just start clicking and I'll start talking. So this is the extended campaign. So you can play, if you have Rebel Fury, you can play literally the entire 1 month campaign. And so what's happening here is you're seeing, this is showing you, just keep clicking, I'll keep talking. This is just showing you Lee's range, and I'm letting you know that I found a mistake by accident from the Lee's range is 15, not 12, and we'll have to correct that. But anyway, so the first opening move was to move the Confederate cavalry to try to block up some of those roads where to try to hold part of the flank for the Confederacy early in the game. Keep clicking. I think at some point, Heth and Early are going to start moving if we keep clicking. I see the Confederate cavalry moved. And there goes Early. Okay, now Heth is going to go up the road to Parker's store, and now the Union and that's the beginning of the wilderness scenario. So when you play the extended campaign, you actually play Rebel. You start with the wilderness scenario with all their counters, and then it flows right into. But if you go to the top, go down. Just go down to the corner of the map just a little bit there, Andrew. Okay, stop right there. You can see right on that bottom hex, you see a wagon. So let me talk about supply. So there is supply in the campaign scenario, which is what we're looking at here. So this counter is not in Rebel Fury, but it is, and obviously you get it in Rebel. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the support. So the wagon, the way supply works is very straightforward. You're either in normal supply or extended supply. If the way you're in normal supply is there is a railroad depot, which is on the map right now, but it's way down by Hanover Junction for the Confederacy, and it's in Fredericksburg for the Union. And the Union wagon is at the top of this. If you went straight north, you'd see the Union wagon. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There it is. That off right, I see it. It's the unit. Where are you? Oh no, you got to go left. There, right by the crook of that river, you see it says Ferraro. That's the Union. Yeah, there's the Union wagon. So as long as you can basically trace a clear path, and I won't go to all the definitions, but as long as you got a clear path back to your railroad depot, and your HQ, your supply wagon is got that line, and you're within range of your HQ, you're in normal supply, which is basically Rebel Fury. You don't have to do anything special. But as you advance, the supply wagon acts like a detachment. So as the Union advances, at some point they're going to move the HQ out of range of the supply wagon. So now you got to remove the supply wagon and shift it. And for the turns when it's being moved forward, you're in extended supply, or you can actually, this wagon is actually a thing. You can rate it with cavalry, all that kind of good stuff. So if the wagon is either disrupted or you're out of range of your HQ or the line to the railroad depot is cut, you're in extended supply. When you're in extended supply, two things are true. First thing is you can only use one artillery ammunition because you're basically using what's in the wagons by the units where all the artillery is. Or two, and every attack or defense, you shift 2 columns to the left. So you're not set up for offensive or defensive operations because you're not near your small arms ammunition resupply. So that's the supply rules in a nutshell. Now continue clicking. Thank you, Andrew. We got like a few minutes, not many more. We're not going to get through much. I guess the question is there any more questions? Because there's only a few more minutes.
Mark, if you want to run a little longer, I think we can do that. It looks like I think Volko is able to handle his on his own. I just need to click a button for them. So if you want to take some more time, I believe we can do that.
Great. Then just keep clicking this thing forward. And so if you go towards that big mass of Union, you'll start to see that. You just saw the first Union guy go. You see the red box. So just as you keep clicking, the Confederates are going to move, the Union's going to move. So just keep clicking. I want to get to the combat phase, so just keep rolling along. So as you can see, this is if you don't know the system, you alternate moves. So you're seeing, and as you get within 2 hexes of an enemy unit, or you go into rough terrain, you're going to flip into battle formation, which means you can move multiple times. Units can move infinitely until somebody passes, then you run out of moves. But even if you're in battle mode, you can only go 1 per space. You could move 19 times if you wanted to. You could go 19 spaces. You're just going to go 1 at a time. You go faster. As you can see, the Union is trying to hit that cavalry unit, and now they're basically bringing the 2nd Corps down to get on the backside of that guy. The battle we just saw, what I described at the beginning of this thing, that area is where we were looking at where all those guys are. And what's going to happen? We're rolling dice now? Oh, yeah. So now what happened was the Confederates passed, and I think the Union gets 19 more. As you click, it's just going to be the Union moving. So just keep clicking now, and you'll see I think it's just going to be, we got a battle. Go back 1. Okay, so we're done with all the movement. So what's happening is the first attack is there's a division attacking that cavalry unit, and now hit the button. And because I brought the guy behind him, he gets whether he gets a retreat or a blown result, as long as he loses, he's going to be blown. So you click, he's going to go away in a second. So that battle is going to open up that little set of roads. Click forward. There we go. So now you see that the cavalry's gone. There's another attack down here on Early, over by the area we looked at earlier. Just keep clicking. Sometimes I went back and forth, but just keep clicking until that arrow disappears. So look, the Confederates lost that battle because he went away. He retreated. So the Revs retreated. Just keep clicking, and now the South. So now stop. So what happened was we just finished that whole turn, and you see that Lee is now displaced more towards the east because he's worried about that right flank now. And if you go back to Grant, go up. Let's find Grant. He's somewhere up north of there, obviously, or up. It's not really north, but it's up. There's Grant. Go down a little bit. There he is. Grant shifted also. And remember, because we're playing the campaign, the whole point of this is a turning movement to get around the Confederate right flank and to get to Spotsylvania, which is off to the right. So both HQs are now displaced. Now keep clicking, and now we'll see how this battle progresses now. And I think some detachments get placed. Yep. So and that's not where that was me just pulling them off onto the map. That's where they're going to go. So those are where the 2 detachments get placed, at least initially. I did it in the wrong order. Now I made my so go back to those 2 detachments. The 2 guys I just go a little bit right. You see those? You see one of them, but there's another one to the right of it. Okay. Down, up, stop. Where am I? All right, now you can click forward, I guess. Where's the other Confederate one? He disappeared. Keep going, click forward. There he is.
There it is, yeah.
Perfect. So those are detachments, and because the Union had the initiative, apparently, that's why I was flipping out which order they went in. I got the initiative wrong. What the Union's trying to do is, the Union goes, okay, people think about detachments as like pawn sacrifice. I'm going to put this guy out there. He's 1 VP. I kill him. Yay. But there also could be the better way to use them is flying columns. So basically, the Union has sent it's actually the Maryland Brigade, but they sent the brigade rapidly down the road to hold those bridges. And the Confederates are basically doing the same. So what the Union plans on doing is getting a better unit into that location, but they're basically holding the terrain. And so think about Buford at Gettysburg. He's going to hold Seminary Ridge until Reynolds shows up. That's what's being simulated here. Again, I'm a historian. I got it. This is exactly the kind of stuff you should be able to do in a game because that's what they did historically. So now just start clicking forward, and we'll start to see the Union's going to go first because they have the initiative. But that second corps is going to come down to where that detachment is at some point. And I'm going to talk while Andrew's doing that. So let's talk about that cavalry unit that got blown. So if you were playing Rebel Fury, a blown unit comes back in 2 turns. That's still true whether you're playing a battle scenario or the campaign scenario. However, in Army of the Potomac campaign scenario, the blown guy gets a 1 casualty marker. There's a 1 and 2 casualty marker. 3 hits kills a unit. He gets a 1 casualty marker. He comes back in 2 days, and the old no more than 2 guys comes back limit is off. You can bring back as many guys as are off, but they all keep getting casualty markers. A unit with a casualty marker acts the same way as it did before it had the casualty marker. A guy with a 2 casualty marker takes a 2-column shift against him in attack or defense. So what's going to happen over the course of the campaign is you're going to start to wear down your troops. Every time a unit takes a loss, you make a call back for replacements. And so what happens is when a guy goes 4 days, 8 turns in the future, a replacement's going to show up for the guy you lost 4 days earlier. So it takes them about that long to get replacements down. So what starts to happen, and you have a finite pool of replacements. So as you take casualties and as units get blown and come back, you're going to be generating replacements that get to then come back in the game. But eventually, when you get to the Cold Harbor, it's usually pretty much out unless you haven't been fighting. But anyway, that's how that basic system works. So that's a big change from Rebel Fury. So now at least we are having, casualty markers and all that. Anyway, keep clicking forward, Andrew. Thank you. Anyway, not a lot. There's one more rule I want. So why don't you click to the last part of the vlog? We'll just pop to the end of the thing. Just keep pushing the button, and we'll see what we see. As you see, the second corps is coming. And see now that detachment, and you can stop right there. So note that the Confederates sent Wilcox to try to get to cover that flank, but the Union, and again, I'm not trying to show good play here. I'm just trying to show a rule. One rule that got added to the game, it's an optional rule, but you should use it in the campaign. You can use it in Rebel Fury. I left it out of Rebel Fury because it adds a level of complexity, but it has more impact here because of the campaign game. You see that the Confederate unit is now really surrounded. One of the things that historically really caused guys to break and run was when bullets came from the front, side, and rear, they knew they were in trouble. And so in this situation, if the Union attacks, and again, I won't go into all the subtleties and the rules around it, but if the Union attacks and this guy is in this situation, he can't use any artillery support. In other words, he's got guns with him, but he can't get ammunition wagons into him, and he has a 2-column shift against him. So this is what's called a flank attack in Rebel Fury, and that is a rule in the campaign game. So you are encouraged, which was the original Rebel Fury rule, you were encouraged to make a line because you can't do this except at the end of a line. But again, it's now I've now added it as an optional rule in case it's too much for you. But again, it makes it a little bit crunchier. That's why I left it out of Rebel Fury, but now it's in the system permanently. But it'll always be an optional rule, at least for now. So there you have it, Army of the Potomac. Maybe we could put the product shot up for a close. I don't know. And also, I would offer to you that remember the rule of attacking in threes. If you want to understand the combat system, it's meant to be 3 wave assaults to take a position. You could take it, and I showed you the math. You may be able to take it on the first try, the second try, the third try, but there it is. So Andrew, I'm just going to say, let's ask for questions, and I'll let you get back to the rest of your life right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for this, Mark. We really appreciate it. I'm sorry it wound up being a little crazy there at the end, but yeah, we greatly appreciate you doing this. Hopefully that was a good overview for everyone. And yeah, I'll have to jump off this and close this down so I can go over and help Volko out. But
Volko needs help. And Volko, by the way, does need help. So I was scared for him. But anyway, what I will do now is I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to go back to the Discord server. So if anybody wants to dialogue, and I'll put my camera on, so I can talk to you guys on the Discord server if you want to hang around. So goodbye for the live feed, and I'll meet you on the Discord server in about 2 seconds for anybody who wants to continue the conversation.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to do it. And so yeah, you'll go to Mark Herman text if you want to continue this. And all right, thank you so much, guys.